The thing about this fight that's made it interesting is that Gilbert Burns had to stand up to trouble Usman, which we saw in the first few minutes. But he also had the grappling. He had that edge. Now I'm thinking of the other fighters in the division. It's tough to say like Kobe Covington rematch, but I'm struggling to see someone that's going to really push Usman. Gilbert Burns was the man.
I've read something about this, and I also heard was listening to ESPN as well. So right now, ESPN was trying to get Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal to do the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Masvidal doesn't want to do this. He's not really keen. I think it's not just what they're saying. Apparently, Masvidal, and you may know this better than I, Masvidal and Covington were roommates at one time. There's actual bad blood.
They were really
not
close.
Just two competitors.
Yeah.
And Masvidal doesn't want anything to do with it. He wants to fight him, but he doesn't want to go through the admin of having to coach. He just wants to fight him. Now Usman, which I really respect this. So this is a guy at the top of his game who he's now won 13 straight. I think there's only 7 other fighters that have done that, and there's one other fighter, Diaz.
That's unbelievable.
Who's done more. So he's at a point where he's at the top of his game, and he's actually called out more or less Masvidal for a fight. Now, what some people think may happen, that this may, because the fight wouldn't happen anyway till July. And people from Usman's camp have said that this may be possible. They may be looking at Usman Masvidal being in the ESPN Ultimate Fighter Championship as coaches, and then ultimately fighting each other in July. Now, I haven't watched The Ultimate Fighter. I've seen bits of it, and some of it looks a little bit too reality TV for me.
It is.
But the idea of the fights I'm interested in watching. And the thing I find interesting is when I watch the Usman fights, I have a lot of respect for Masvidal when he took on Usman when the Burns fight was called due to COVID. So I haven't read much about Masvidal. I understand he's a vet. He's a good fighter. He's been around for 15 years or something along those lines.
He's unbelievable.
And he, in that fight, he looked like having very little preparation, 2 weeks to prepare. He looked like he could, he looked like he belonged in that fight. And it was Usman won, but it wasn't necessarily like, it kind of left me thinking I'd like to see this fight happen if they both had time
with
to prepare.
A full training camp. Yes,
and
correct.
Full credit to Usman. Usman has identified this, and he's so driven, I think, to be the best. He wants to make sure when he's beating people, he's properly beating him. And he probably felt like apparently he had a broken nose, Usman, going into that fight against Masvidal. Didn't tell anybody.
I didn't know that.
So
okay.
So going into that fight, Usman broke his nose about 10 days before. And during the fight, or it was after the fight doctor said to Usman, "You broke your nose in this fight." He's like, "No, it was already broken going into it." So he had some mitigating circumstances that might have impacted the outcome. But he wants to take on a healthy Masvidal. Masvidal is a great fighter in his own right, and I think he wants to kind of put this whole question mark about his legacy behind him, because I did read that there are people that don't find him as a popular champion, and I think beating Masvidal would be a good step. And the fact that he's calling him out, I have a lot of time for him. I'm really impressed with that. So that's what I have. That's my research. That's what I have found, and I'd be interested to see that, because that Covington fight. Man, I would have loved to have watched that live. I watched that fight, the Covington Usman fight, after all the trash talk. That was an incredible fight.
Kobe broke his jaw with a jab. You see it, like he had his mouth open, and he just kind of took his jaw to side, and he went in after a couple of rounds saying, our jaw was broken. And
he went back out again too.
He kept on going, but like Kamaru made that. It's not like, oh, he was unlucky. No, Kamaru broke his jaw. So that's credit to Kamaru. And they're both wrestlers. Kobe his energy is like, I think, almost unparalleled. He does not get tired. So Kamaru wore him down, which was unbelievable. But let's just touch very briefly on the Masvidal thing, Sean, because Masvidal is he is about as technically good as it gets on his feet. He's like silk on his feet, and you saw that in glances with the Usman fight. I don't know if you watched the whole thing, but you can just see the contrast between how he took on Burns and how he took on Masvidal. He didn't want anything. He didn't want to be playing around with Masvidal on his feet, because he knew what Masvidal could do. So he just wanted to grab a hold of him, because he knew that Masvidal, although can hold his own on the ground, he can submit people. He has some technique. His strength really lies in the stand-up. So he wanted to nullify that by getting to the ground and just like to beat up on him, like make it a boring fight. But what you said is what everyone said. It's like fair play to Masvidal taking out on such short notice and just keeping that main event. And actually, let's be frank, people were probably more excited about that than they were about Burns. But we just want to see Masvidal go at it with a full training camp. And that face there, the Gamebred, he's got almost like a religion. People love Masvidal because he's just that cheeky, kind of clever. He's just got style and flair, and he's a great talker. He used to fight on the streets and had videos of him along with Kimbo Slice. So he's a legit gangster. Like he's a badass. So seeing him have a full training camp, he's going to cause Kamaru a lot of trouble. But again, I still see the same thing kind of happening. I still see Usman weathering the Masvidal storm and getting him down and beating him up. But I would still be very excited to watch it.
We'll see if the ESPN Ultimate Fighting thing does come to fruition. But that'll be fun. I mean, it would be a good one for me to get involved in because I haven't watched a ton of Masvidal. My introduction to Masvidal was the preparation for the Yaskrin video we did. Because I think it was Masvidal that had the fastest knockout in UFC history with that double knee jump within the first 2 seconds. And a lot of the fights I've seen, he's very entertaining to watch because he's very acrobatic with some of the flying knees he does, and it's very good TV. Masvidal, watching him fight.
He, for the uninitiated, he's great, but for the initiated, he's actually undervalued at how technical he is. He's like Conor. The people are like, oh, he talks a lot of shit. You're like, no, Conor is just amazing on his feet. Like these two, he's up there. He's a great boxer. He's very skilled. So, yeah, I would love to see that. And I love Masvidal. I love watching him. I always choose.